Welcome back to All Things Creepy. I'm your host, Micah James. And this week's episode is titled Unreal Cryptids. So basically, what I'm talking about are animals who people used to think are or were cryptids. So in case you don't know what a cryptid is, think like Bigfoot, Yeti, Mothman, the Jersey Devil, Ogopogo, that kind of thing. Loch Ness Monster even falls under that category. But there are plenty of animals out there that people had no idea existed until they found like a skeleton or just somehow found proof that they actually exist. And because of that, there is some possibility that, just maybe some of the cryptids that we don't have proof yet are actually real. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about 5 different cryptids. So, number 1 on my list is the Komodo dragon. For decades, there were talks of a giant lizard that wandered the Indonesian island of Komodo. No one really believed it to be real until about 1910 when Lieutenant Stein von Hansbroek was able to catch and kill one. An explorer by the name of W. Douglas Burden wanted more, though. He wasn't happy seeing just a body of one of these dragons. So he decided to travel to the island of Komodo himself and was able to come back to New York with not only just a few dead specimens, but 2 live Komodo dragons. Those same 2 dragons were then put on display at the Bronx Zoo and had later inspired the original 1933 King Kong movie. Next is the platypus. Even now, this animal still gives the feeling of a cryptid despite being very real. It is native to Australia, and upon its discovery, broke a lot of the rules of what we knew about animals, never mind just specifically mammals. First and foremost, it is one of 5 mammals that is able to give birth to eggs rather than live offspring. And secondly, it has the tail of a beaver, the feet of an otter, and a duck-like bill on its head. Just by the description alone, it is no surprise that people thought that the platypus didn't exist without any sort of proof. And fun fact, if you ever watched Phineas and Ferb, you might know the character Perry, the platypus. He's teal in color, and if I can find a picture of like a real life platypus that does this, I will post it onto Instagram and Blue Sky. But Phineas and Ferb colored Perry the way they did was because they thought it was a fun color. Later to find out that some platypuses, platypi, platypeople actually do appear teal in color under certain lights. So, thought that was interesting. Unreal cryptid number 3 is the okapi. It looks like a cross between a zebra, donkey, deer, and an antelope. However, its closest genetic link is the giraffe, which does kind of seem appropriate as its nickname is the forest giraffe. This is another animal that is actually pretty cool looking, and I will be posting an image on Instagram and Blue Sky, like I said. But the okapi's existence was known about for years and years prior to the Europeans, of course, because it is native to Africa. So, of course, Africans knew about its existence. But even then, they tend to be hard to spot and are rarely seen, despite being known about for decades before the Europeans. Number 4 is the giant squid. The story of the Kraken and Cthulhu, among many other sea monsters, had to come from somewhere. Sightings of giant squids date all the way back to the times of Aristotle. Pliny the Elder had even described them in his book Natural History. Pliny's description of the animal wasn't too far off either. The only thing he seemed to get really wrong was the size of the squid. He had estimated it to be 30 feet or 9 meters long, but in reality, giant squids can grow to be as big as 40 feet or 12 meters long. Early zoologists only really had the carcasses to work with as proof of these animals' existence. And I add that to the fact that a giant squid carcass can decay super quickly, so it isn't hard to imagine that they remained as cryptids for so long. And now with cameras and stuff like that, being able to go deeper into the sea, it is easier to know that, or easier to get proof of them, living, being giant squids. And finally, number 5, just hear me out on this one before you go switching off, but I will be talking about the unicorn. Now, in and of itself, the unicorn is technically a mythological creature rather than an actual cryptid, but like I said, hear me out. It's not that the unicorn is real by any means. This is more of an explanation on why people thought it did exist at one point in time. Going back to Pliny the Elder, he described a unicorn in Natural History as follows, quote, "It has the feet of the elephant and the tail of the boar, while the rest of the body is like that of a horse. It makes deep, lowing noises and has a single black horn which projects from the middle of its forehead, 2 cubits in length. This animal, it is said, cannot be taken alive," unquote. Many people believe that Pliny was describing not a unicorn but a rhinoceros. Another possibility of these alleged sightings were that of narwhals. They are basically really kind of like whales, things that look like whales with horns growing out of the top of their head. And a lot of sea captains and people who are on sea would think that they saw a lot of things like mermaids and stuff like that. So for them to come to the conclusion that there was, a unicorn out at sea, especially not knowing what a narwhal was, it makes sense. So just as a conclusion, it seems like the big difference between these very real animals versus cryptids like Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster is the fact that there's solid proof that these animals exist. They found bodies, they have footage, they have, I say pictures, but we technically have pictures of Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and the Jersey Devil, but it's more so the combination of having the confirmed footage, the confirmed body, all of that with the picture that kind of makes these not so cryptid animals prove that those exist versus, the cryptids. That being said, with the sea cryptids or water cryptids like the Loch Ness Monster, it's possible that animals like this, those do exist. Just the ocean is just so vast, we haven't discovered every single animal yet. So it's totally possible that something like the Loch Ness Monster or Ogopogo or any other sea cryptid actually exists. We just don't have the body yet to prove that, oh, hey, the Loch Ness Monster exists. So it's still possible that these cryptids exist. Another thing to consider is maybe they don't want to be found either. So with all that being said, if there's a cryptid I haven't covered at all, or other unreal cryptids like I mentioned, the platypus and giant squid that I haven't covered, let me know and I will try to cover them on a future episode. It might be in a grab bag. So yeah, with all that being said, I will hopefully see you guys next week, and please be safe out there.